Silver Ladder Asterisk. Episode 3, The Whispering Shad. By Thalia Carrion. The night settled slowly over Whitcomb Hall, thickening like velvet draped over the sky. The two moons, the first, pale and enormous, the second, smaller but sharp as a polished coin, drifted upward until their light spilled through the tall windows in overlapping pools of silver blue. Dust motes danced in the beams, twirling like drifting galaxies, each one suspended in the silence of the night. In the center of this luminous snowfall, Astra's cradle sat carved constellations glowing faintly along its frame. The child slept, her tiny chest rising and falling with steady breaths, the calm of her slumber a fragile thing. Every so often, her fingers twitched, reaching for dreams that only newborns and perhaps stars themselves could understand. Ilara watched her for a long time, her heart heavy with 1,000 unspoken fears. The house, it breathed with her. The floorboards warmed beneath her boots, the curtains swayed gently as though stirred by invisible hands. A presence, ancient yet tender, hummed from the walls. Whitcomb Hall had weathered storms, wars, and the whispers of haunted nights, but nothing had ever stirred it quite like this child. Astra. Ilara whispered the name again, and it sank deep into her chest, a prayer she hadn't known she needed. The weight of it pressed against her, like a promise and a curse all at once. Behind her, Vas stood near the tall arched window, half swallowed in shadow. Moonlight traced the edges of his armor, the runed plates catching silver glints, flickering like distant stars. His staff rested against the wall, quiet but pulsing with dormant energy, a sleeping power waiting to be called upon. He looked weary, though he hid it well, as though the journey here had taken more than just the toll of travel. "Ilara," he said softly, his voice low and steady like a stone sinking into still water. "You've walked far. Sit." "I can't," she murmured, her voice tight. "Not yet." Vas took a step closer, his shadow stretching across the floor, mingling with hers. "You haven't slept in 2 nights." Her jaw tightened, and her eyes flickered briefly to the cradle. "I will sleep when she is safe." A soft exhale left his lips, laden with worry, yet tinged with understanding. He ran a hand over his face, brushing away the dust of their journey, the exhaustion of it all. "Ilara, what happened in the forest?" A shiver passed through her, but she didn't speak right away. When she did, it was barely a whisper, as though the words themselves were afraid to escape. "It began at the river," she said, her voice a fragile thread. "I had just crossed the footbridge." Her fingers clenched at her side, nails biting into her skin as though she could hold back the memory. The trees, they went silent, every one of them. No owls, no wind, even the river. It felt muffled, like the world itself had stopped breathing. Vas said nothing, but his presence was solid behind her, a steady anchor in the storm of her thoughts. Patient, always patient. "I felt eyes on me," Ilara continued. "But not like an animal, not like a bandit's. It was something deeper, something older asterisk." She swallowed, the taste of dread thick on her tongue. And then the shadow came. Vas's expression darkened, his posture tightening ever so slightly. "Describe it." Ilara closed her eyes, as though to gather the shards of the nightmare. "It had no shape," she whispered. "Not truly, but it felt like it did, like it was wearing shapes it couldn't hold together, a smear of darkness, and inside, whispers." Her voice trembled, the fear still fresh. "It knew her name, Vas. Astra's name, not mine, not yours, hers." The runes on Vas's gauntlets dimmed and brightened in quick succession, pulsing like a heartbeat. His face grew colder, more distant, the way it always did when he wrestled with something ancient, something dangerous. "Shadows do not speak names," he murmured, as if tasting the weight of those words. "Not unless they've been taught." Ilara nodded, her breath shallow. "It chased me." The images flooded her mind again, sharp and jagged, the snap of branches behind her, the hiss of something that wasn't quite breath, the thudding of her boots as she ran through bramble and root, Astra pressed tight to her chest. "It moved faster than anything with bones should," she said, her voice tight with the memory. "And every time I looked back, it was closer, not in distance, but in asterisk presence. It was already touching my shoulders. Vas stepped closer, placing a steadying hand on her arm, grounding her. His touch was firm, unyielding. "You're safe now," he said, his voice low and certain. "No," Alara whispered. "Not yet." Her gaze drifted toward Astra's cradle, where the child slept in fragile peace. Not until whatever that thing was is far, far away. Vas's eyes flashed with cold, protective resolve. "If it comes, it will face me." Alara turned to him sharply, her voice quiet but firm. "It wasn't coming for you." A heavy silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken truths. Then, from the cradle, Astra stirred. Her tiny fingers flexed, brushing against the constellation-carved frame, and a soft hum filled the air not from her, but from the space around her. The moonlight grew brighter, swirling over her like a protective veil, as if the stars themselves had taken notice. The child's mismatched eyes fluttered open for the briefest moment, pupils shimmering like shifting constellations. Then, just as quickly, she slipped back into sleep. A single loose star on the cradle's frame flickered, and then asterisk shifted. Vas took a step closer, his brows furrowing in concern. "She's beginning to shape the constellations, already." Alara tensed, her breath catching in her throat. "Is that dangerous?" "Dangerous," Vas whispered, awe thick in his voice. "It's unheard of." His tone softened, reverence creeping in like a tide. "Most star-touched children don't show signs until they're 7 or 8, some not even until adulthood. Astra, been alive for hours, Alara, hours." A slow, deep dread unfurled in Alara's chest, cold fingers tracing her spine. "That's why the wardstone's lit." Vas nodded grimly. "And why the shadow found you. Something in the dark felt asterisk her birth, or her power, or both." The estate groaned, a low and mournful sound, as if it, too, understood the truth of his words. Moonlight pooled at Alara's feet, casting long, trembling shadows. She pressed a hand to Astra's small, warm body, seeking reassurance in the soft rise and fall of her breath. "What if I can't protect her?" Alara whispered, the question a raw, desperate thing. Vas straightened, his cloak shifting like storm clouds gathering. "Then I will." For a long moment, Alara met his gaze, and for once allowed him to see the fear she rarely showed. Not for herself, but for Astra, the child she had promised to protect, even though fate had thrust her into Alara's arms from another world entirely. Vas placed a hand over hers, his grip steady, unshakable. "Alara," he said quietly, "you've faced worse than forests and shadows. You've defied magistrates and kings. You outran the Witchmarsh wraith with a broken ankle." "That was different," she replied, lips curving into a humorless smile. "That creature didn't know my child's name." Vas's eyes darkened. "No," he agreed gravely. "This one did." The thought settled between them like a stone dropped into still water, heavy and unshakable. Outside, the wind shifted. Leaves scattered across the cobblestones. The wrought iron gate creaked, though no hand touched it. Far below, in Briarhollow, a quiet fell over the village, as if the earth itself held its breath. The estate dimmed its candles, flickering in warning. "Alara," Vas murmured, lifting his staff. The runes on it began to glow faintly, the air around them thickening with anticipation. "Something is moving near the tree line." The house seemed to stiffen. The curtains froze midsway. The chandelier above them trembled. And Astra, still asleep, clenched her tiny fist as though gripping something unseen. Alara scooped her up without a second thought, pressing the child to her chest, her heart hammering in her ears. "Vas," she whispered, the fear thick in her throat. He stepped toward the window, his staff crackling with power. "It's here."